If you want to get this working on that, then you're in the right place. Because in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I get my CAMMUS C5 working on my PlayStation 5 so I can play Gran Turismo, F1 24, ACC on PlayStation, working, and not just working, driving really well. I'm not only going to share how I connect everything up, how I get it working, I'm going to share all of my settings to get the force feedback dialed in absolutely perfect. So the magic ingredients in all of this is the Raslution 2 adapter from Brook. I'm going to have a link to that in the description below. And the first thing to do is to connect everything, power it all up so it's all ready to go. And the best way to do this is to connect all of your CAMMUS wheelbase as you would normally do with the power, the USB cable, and there's actually two ways you can do this with regard to the pedals. You can either have the pedals directly connected to the wheelbase and then use the single USB onwards from the wheelbase to the adapter, or you can plug the wheelbase into the adapter and the pedals separately into the adapter, and that's how I'm going to do it right now. That's how I've used it most of the time. So I've got the two USB cables here. I've got the USB cable from the wheelbase. That's going into port number 1 in the Raslution 2 adapter. Always the wrong way, as it is with any USB. And then the pedals cable I'm going to put into port 2. Now with the pedals cable specifically on the CP5 pedals, it's a USB-C cable, but it comes with an adapter to the regular larger USB, and this is what I use in the adapter. So with everything plugged into the adapter and the adapter not yet plugged into the PlayStation, power up the wheelbase, and it's going to power up, go through its startup sequence. Once it's powered up and good to go, all of this equipment, including the adapter, should be treated as just one peripheral. Everything's powered up, it's good to go. Power on your PlayStation, so that's ready to go. And then once we're happy with that, we can plug in the Raslution 2 adapter specifically into the front of the PlayStation 5. That's going to start up the adapter. You'll get a few menu selection screens, and you can just click on Start to choose PlayStation 5 as the compatible option. Everything is now set up, plugged in and good to go. On the CAMMUS C5, the 4 buttons in the center of the wheel, they are all mapped to the PlayStation button on your PlayStation controller. So press any of those buttons and then you just log in with the selection screen. The arrows are the D-pad and the A, B, C, D buttons are the triangle, square, circle and cross buttons in the same order. And then we can log into our PlayStation as such. An important thing to note that I do to ensure the most reliability with this combination is whenever you power down your PlayStation, unplug the Raslution 2 adapter and power off the wheelbase. And then the next time you come to play your PlayStation, power up the wheelbase, power up the PlayStation, and then plug in the adapter fresh. Following those startup methods, I've had almost 100% reliability. I've just not had a problem with it at all. Whenever I've left the Raslution 2 adapter plugged in and I've started the PlayStation and just left things connected and power up and come backwards and forwards to it, sometimes the wheel force feedback doesn't activate properly. But following the startup method I've just mentioned, it's been perfect every single time you start up. Now the way this works is that the Raslution 2 adapter converts and presents itself to the PlayStation as a Logitech G29. So that's why on screen right now my wheel is recognized as a Logitech G29. So the wheel rotation is set to 450 and acceleration, brake all works as expected to be. And with regard to which buttons do which and how to remap them in Gran Turismo 7, head over to the Logitech G29 and select here. Now what I'll put on screen for you guys is a mapping correlation button, so you can't remap any of the button combinations from the C5 to the Raslution 2 adapter. So for example, the triangle button is always going to be a triangle button in this correlation, but within whatever game you're playing, you can remap them to be whatever function you want them to be in Gran Turismo 7. Slightly annoyingly, there are some buttons on the G29 that aren't mapped on the C5 through the Raslution 2 adapter. None of the rotary dials work, neither does the rev counter or the speed or gear indication light. I personally don't use the rev counter or speed indication light when I'm on PC anyway. I just never really reference displays that are on my wheel. but I would have liked to have seen the Raslution 2 adapter map some of the rotary buttons, like for example does exist on a G29. I may reach out to Raslution and see if they've got any improvements they can provide for me. Now here are the force feedback settings that I use on the CAMMUS C5, both on PC and on PlayStation through all of the games including Gran Turismo 7. So I have the steering range set to 900 degrees. That matches the same rotation that the Logitech G29 has, which gives them the most perfect compatibility between steering ratio in game and the games that we play. I have power set to 100%, natural damping and natural friction I have them both set to 0%, natural inertia 3%, and the ideal spring set to 10%. Over on the game effects tab I have the effects intensity at 80%, CF filter set to 70%, Q factor set to 60%, game friction 10%, and game spring at 30%. Moving over to assistance, I have the force feedback invert off, and the hands off protection I have that disabled as well. I have the end stop strength set to soft. Here are the settings down here. I don't think this actually works through the Raslution 2 adapter. And then overheat protection, I just have that set to the default, which I think is 80 degrees centigrade. I've not really felt this get hot in the slightest, so I think these settings work perfect. One thing I would suggest you do is to go to devices, head over to pedals, and then just to reset the minimum and maximums. Specifically, I would under calibrate the throttle and brake pedal. Just hit full throttle, ease off a little bit, and then reset that as the new maximum. So just hit full throttle, ease off a little bit, set that to be the new max, and then make sure you always overthrow and hit the top end of your throttle, and then the same on the brake. Just hit full brake and then just ease off a little bit, and then just set that as the max brake. That makes sure you will always hit maximum brake. It makes sure you will always hit maximum throttle. You'll not have any jittering at the top end, which some people have said happens with these CP5 pedals. Once I calibrated the pedals like this, the pedals have been working really well for me. Now let's move on to the firmware that I use on the Brook Raslution 2 adapter, because this is probably the most important piece in all of the puzzle, and I use Raslution 2 adapter firmware 1.8.0.3b. It's a beta version of the Raslution software. I will link that to my personal website and my own version of this software in the description of this video, so make sure you go and check that out. That is the version that I'm using on the Raslution 2 adapter. It's pretty easy to update this when you've got access to a PC. You simply just press and hold the start button as you plug it into the PC, and then you just choose update from this menu on screen here. Using the version of the firmware 1.7.0 from the Raslution 2 website, I had a few wheel disconnects while driving with the CAMMUS C5, and also driving with the MAZDA wheelbase as well. So I highly recommend going over to my website, checking out that firmware update for the Raslution 2 adapter. As a side note guys, if you are a MAZDA user using FFB 3.0 new firmware on your MAZDA wheelbase, this also corrects a problem with the steering left and right as well. So switching back to the PlayStation now, and because I literally have just pulled this out of being plugged into the PC, I'm going to power off the CAMMUS wheelbase, and then I'm going to power it back up again just to make sure that it's a fresh power up of the wheelbase. It's never been plugged into a PC. It doesn't remember any connection to a PC at all. Take the USB connection and plug it back into the Raslution 2 adapter in port number 1. And then with everything connected and power up, just plug it into the front of my PS5. Once that's all happy, I'm just going to press the one of the center 4 buttons to then sign me in and connect me as it's seen in the top corner of the screen. So now I have full control again. We're good to go in PlayStation. Before we talk about the force feedback settings in-game in Gran Turismo 7, I'm just going to run you through the menu on the Brook Raslution 2 adapter, because I have made a specific change on force feedback strength on the Raslution 2 adapter. Click on force feedback strength, and I up this to be force feedback +3. Now on this, you can tune this a little bit higher or lower depending how much strength of the wheel force feedback you want to come through the wheel, because there are settings in game that determine the detail of the force feedback comes through, and I think you should use the Raslution 2 adapter to control the strength of the force feedback you will receive. From within the driving menu in Gran Turismo 7, head over to settings and then head down to controller settings. These are the settings I use, I think make the wheel feel really quite nice. Controller sensitivity, I personally believe this only affects the stick on the controller when you're using it. I don't think it has any effect over the wheel rotation or direction, but other people swear that it completely does, so feel free to follow whatever recommendation you want to do on that one. The important things here for me are force feedback sensitivity and force feedback max torque. For force feedback sensitivity, I highly recommend always using the maximum. For me, that gives the most tight wheel feel for the wheel alignment when you're steering through the corners. Anything lower just feels like there's a gap in the middle, like a bit of a sloppy steering linkage effect, as you would feel like in a real car. So I highly recommend force feedback sensitivity 10. And then for force feedback max torque, this is different to what I've used and spoken about in the past, because a lot of the time I've been recommending using the highest value possible. However, with recent force feedback updates in Gran Turismo 7, I find having this set to too high, anything more than 4, I think you lose a bit of subtle detail that's provided through curbs, undulations, and those details. Having it at 4 in game, and then using the Raslution 2 adapter force feedback strength adjustment to then raise or lower the actual weight of the wheel that you want to feel, is the best way to have these settings in Gran Turismo 7. So let's now drive the car and see how it drives. The Mazda 787B is renowned for having a lot of oscillation and problems with force feedback at speed in a straight line. And although it subtly exists, I've seen much worse from natively supported PlayStation wheels, and I think my settings on the CAMMUS C5 and in gaming Gran Turismo and also on the Raslution 2 adapter are feeling really quite good. So flowing through these corners, you can just feel the weight of the car as you go through. You can feel the rumbles on the curb and down through the gears. Just feel the weight of the car as you come through the corners. Hit the slow speed corner here. Getting the gas, you can feel the car want to snap and slide, and it wants to correct itself as you make that slide. You get the alignment of the wheel into the slide. It feels good. I've got to say, guys, it feels really good. Driving a road car, you get a lot less strength through the wheel as you'd expect from driving just a regular road car. A lot less grip in the car. You still get that nice feedback as to what the rear end's doing on the car. It's a little slide to catch. You just get those hints as to how much opposite lock you need to apply to catch those slides on the brakes. You can feel the kind of wheels locking as the rear starts to rotate as well. Feels good, honestly. The alignment forces on the corner exits are good. You get the hints as to what opposite lock you need to be applying. So there we go, guys. That should get you covered for everything you need to know how to get the cheapest direct drive wheel available right now, the CAMMUS C5, working on PlayStation 5 or PlayStation 4, or any other game on PlayStation that supports a Logitech G29 wheel. If you want to know my thoughts and feedback on the CAMMUS C5 hardware specifically, I've got a full video review. It's on the screen right now. Go and check that out.